Ideally, they have an option of playing music also. Okay, Sana, I think we have about 1 minute, 30 seconds, then I think we can start, yeah? Sana, I feel that, in the meanwhile, when people are coming, I just checked in Africa, there's almost 60% of people who are unbankable, and almost 50 to 60% people do not have phones, which are or internet or smartphones. Yeah. So that's the market, this particular platform provides and offers or addresses. Yeah. I know we are live. So let's just wait for another minute. Not even a minute actually. Yeah, 30 seconds and then we can start off.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's roll.
Hello and welcome everybody to our LinkedIn live session on offline KYC. I hope everybody's doing well in these very unpredictable times. I hope everybody's safe and healthy. I'm Sana from Bluebricks. I have over 15 years of experience and I'm a Prince 2 project manager. I have over 15 years experience in managing projects, and now I'm looking at partnerships and key accounts with Bluebricks. With me, I have Vikram, who is also our CEO and Chief Technical Architect. Vikram has over 22 years of experience in the cybersecurity space. He is a multiple patent holder, has done many projects, and just loves solving problems. So today we'll be talking about digitally onboarding people where there is very little or very poor or no internet connectivity. We'll talk about the whys, what, and how does this offline EKYC process work. So coming from our discussions, Vikram, do you want to move on to the next slide? Thank you. So, coming from our many discussions with our clients, partners, and friends in the industry, we've come to realize that digital onboarding for urban customers has more or less reached a certain process which is digitized and streamlined, and the next generation customer onboarding is going to focus on the unbanked people, is the people who are living in rural areas, in the province, in the regional areas where internet connectivity is very poor, and at the same time volumes are large. So and these people are moving on to digital processes. So let's take our first case and example, which is, let's say there's a tier 2 bank in India that needs to hand out microloans to people in the rural, villages. Now, because of the lack of good networks, any form of digital onboarding so far has been impossible. So somebody has to physically be there, somebody like an agent who has to go through the entire process in a very paper-driven and manual, in a very paper-driven and manual way. So that inherently brings the risk of human error. It brings in the problems of not being able to handle large volumes in a time efficient way, and the problems of duplication and just human error, fake accounts. So
and I think the last point is bit also important, that because there's a gap in the time, so people are able to create, or hackers are able to create a fraudulent or a mule account, and that only gets figured out, over, let's say, week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But by that time, the money is already out, right?
Yes.
the fraud has already happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of time and energy that is spent in this, in this kind of process. So now, let's take the next case here that we have is, so every government body, every country has initiatives where they give out subsidies or extend help to the people who are in remote areas. Now the problem is, how do you identify these users? Again, somebody has to be there manually doing the ID checks. There's huge volume typically in these instances, and that would mean people waiting in long queues. And again, managing that process manually, entering, collecting their IDs, doing a face to ID match. And a lot of times what people do is they use a different ID, and
Yeah.
so that's just takes really long. It's a very slow and a very paper driven and a very, very hard process.
Yes. And again, there's no internet, so essence is over there,
Yes,
right?
of course, there's
Yeah.
no that is the basic premise. So it really poses a big challenge to manage the entire thing, just to manage the operation. Let's take another
Yeah.
example of opening new accounts. So banks, microloan lender, microloan providers, your insurance companies, all of them, when they have to onboard these new people onto their systems, there is a certain compliance that needs to be met, which is much, much harder when it is done offline. So,
Yeah.
face to ID match, which is very human dependent in this case. Manual entries cannot track duplicate entries. So, sometimes what happens is that a person will take one SIM card and one ID. Said he'll take SIM card one and Aadhaar and his Aadhaar card and open one account. Now the same person will bring in another phone number, another SIM card, and show his driving license and open another card. And by the time all of these entries are taken down, gone to the system, manually entered by somebody, and even then these two accounts belonging to the same person are not associated. There is nothing to link them because he's just provided different IDs.
Yeah.
The entire process is really slow and challenging.
Correct. So
And
how do you track
another,
these duplicates?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, how do you track? Another challenge is that I think all of these BFSIs, your loan providers, insurance companies, banks, what's happening is that you're deploying double the resources. So there is one process that is working for your digital onboarding for the urban clientele, right, which is more or less streamlined. It has a certain way that, steps, compliance, everything is sorted out. And then
Yeah.
to do the same thing, you're basically achieving the same end result, but you have to deploy a completely different process, with many agents in between who'd be going to these remote areas, doing everything
Yeah.
with papers and pens, and it's really challenging, especially in COVID times. You really want least possible human contact, so it just takes much
Okay.
longer.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last one, I
Another,
guess, Sana. Yeah.
yes, mobile
Okay.
remittance. So a lot of the younger generation, as it happens to be, move out to metros, or they move out to different countries close by to work, to study, and then one of the main objectives is to be able to earn and send money back to your older parents. So this clientele is old, is much senior in age, and it is really hard for them to work so hard. It's not right to make them work so hard to receive the money that the children are sending them. So what they typically need to do is go over to some agents again. Authenticity of these agents themselves, it becomes questionable in a lot of the circumstances, a lot of times. And so that becomes a really, it poses a big problem for that section. And again, it's the same problem, a different process for online and a different process for offline. So what
Yeah.
is the way
Correct.
forward?
Correct. Correct. No, I think just to add to what Sana is saying, that I think the question is that how do you take digital transformation ahead, and then from there you basically cannot say that okay, I'll have different ways and different processes for
Mm-hmm.
urban as well as for, or online and offline. That's what we call it. People who are able to go online and people who are not able to go online. And I think that's the battle, and that's what we have worked for last almost about 6 months, to solve that problem. We ourselves have solved the problem of urban or online, for a while, and now we said, hey, this is serious. We need to address to that, 1/3 of the world's population, and then, fix the problem, right? So we found these problems, and now we are solving towards, or trying to solve them. I think Sana, um, uh, let me take over on the technical part. So I think Sonic Offline, Sonic, obviously, I think we all know Sonic, it's hyper fast, super fast, and it's offline. So that means there is no server, which is needed to actually do the job. So right now, most of the things happen, like I have an API, I call the API, it will do face to ID, it will do OCR, it will do everything. But then can I, change it? Can I do it mobile first way of handling things? So Sonic Offline KYC is essentially, I would say, a SDK that goes and sits on the mobile app. So if you're making insurance app, fintech app, banking app, telco app, CRM app, whatever, it's the mobile first way of thinking and doing things, is where we are brought in all the AI and machine learning, which we had earlier in the server side, onto the mobile, where you don't need to depend on the server or internet, but as per the Sonic word, it delivers you high speed, high value, or high velocity kind of proposition. So few things that it offers, because once I show you the demo, you'll see how it works. So few things what it does is that firstly it's offline and super fast. So even if I'm in a village, there's no internet, it works and it's super fast. Why? Because it's working on the phone. And one of the most basic requirement of KYC, across the globe is face to ID match. That means the person who's real, who's being taken into the video or the selfie mode, is the one who's actually producing the same document, as their passport or their driving license or any national ID that they have from Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Cambodia, India, all these other places, Australia. So wherever, whatever ID you're using, you should be able to detect that, and then you should be able to do that. The next one, which I think Sana mentioned very well, was the finding the person using face. That is this the person who's actually trying to create multiple accounts or a single account. So we have come up with a very interesting way of solving that problem, where once the system gets synced in, you get all the faces onto the agent's app, and you can just say search the face, and using that AI component, we are able to find out whether this person is already registered, or already has an account with the system. So that is one of the, I would say, very fast ways of doing it. So it addresses to the remittance part, it addresses to the deduplicate of accounts part, it also addresses to the account duplication, or sorry, customer due diligence part. We didn't stop over there. Spoofing is one of the key things which most of the hackers are trying to use to bypass any kind of digital KYC. And I think something similar can also happen if you're doing online or offline, whichever way. So what does it mean? It means that the person should be active and alive. That means look left, look right, playing, show hand, things like that. But more importantly, they cannot show a photo on the phone or a video on the phone and show it onto the screen or the mobile app and then try to trick the system. So it's basically called anti-spoofing. So pad attack, presentation attack, or detection. So we have a module which is running on the phone that actually helps you to do the prevention or spoofing, detection. Again, whether the device is jailbroken or not. So if it's a hacker, or somebody bad who's trying to download the app, use it, you're saying, okay, let's, find out if the same phone is getting used for onboarding multiple users. That means there is some anomaly. If the phone is broken, that means there is some, rogue applications which are there. So even your agent who has the app, they have installed something which is malicious. Our system is able to detect if it's jailbroken or a rooted or some malicious, apps are there. Consent note. I'll show you in the demo also. This is a beautiful concept where you can ask the user to write on a piece of paper, or or like a number or date of birth or today's date or their full name or their address, something like that, which is unique and it cannot be replayed. So again, it is getting done offline where the system does that. I'll show you in the demo again. ID, OCR, extraction of face, finding which document they're using, doing the OCR of that, or MRZ extraction of that and taking it ahead. Again, we didn't stop over there. A few clients said that, hey, I want to know the gender, I want to know the age. I want to geofence, the system. Again, everything which I'm showing you is done offline. That means it runs on the phone and it works or gives you the ability to use these features into your system. Voice biometrics is something new that we're working on, where you will be able to use the voice as a way of authentication when the person is actually getting the subsidy or getting the money, not just face or biometrics aspect. So let's jump into two demos. So typically there are two types of ID documents. I'll quickly go ahead from here. So over here, what you see is that it's a totally offline app. It's running on the phone, so it's a demo app that showcases you how it works. Here's a user, our colleague Hiran, who is doing the EKYC using her passport. So right now she's going through the process of anti-spoofing detection, liveliness detection, geofencing, device profiling, phone is broken or not. All those kind of checks are happening in the background, and she's going through this phase of identifying herself. So all those things are happening in the background. Again, offline on the phone. Now she's taking ahead and she's showing her ID. So as you could see, it's a continuous video. There is no disconnect over here. It's a continuous video that is actually doing, so there are not many clicks that you have to do. Now she's doing a consent note where she's written her name, date of birth, whatever you want. Now she's doing a signature. Now after this, what has happened is that you get to all the data that you're seeing over here is pulled out, and it is shown over here as a JSON data. So what does JSON data? I think most of the technical people understand is the data that you can process. So over here, you could see that the document was identified as a passport. Confidence level was 96. MRZ was extracted on the phone, quickly matched, found out all the details, and then also did a face to ID match with 96, almost 96%. That the person, real person, and the photo in the ID have matched. And then down below, you see the consent note, which she has written, again done offline. Then the signature, which she has done offline. And then also all the details of the device, and from the location to velocity, all those things, or jailbroken, rooted, using VPN, things like that or not, are also being showcased over here. So this was the one which was with MRZ, and good myself. Just made a video because we have few audiences which are from India for this particular demo. So over here, I have done exactly the same thing sorry, I'm trying to figure out which eye to close. But going ahead, I have gone through the same process. I have used my ID, which is my driving license, sorry, my PAN card from India. And then I am jumping into the my EKYC. So you would see that my EKYC is a bit different over here, other than what Hiran did. So I'm writing it down on a piece of paper and then showing it over here. So this adds the dynamism or the anti-spoofing at a user level. And then I'm going and signing it. Now, again, the same thing happens. So you see that all the data that has been captured by for me. Then after that, you see that the ID that was used, again, you can see it's PAN from India. User is not selecting. So that's something which is done by the system. So it's intelligent enough to identify which document you're using. Then again, the same process of doing the OCR consent note, getting all the ID of the the documents and the device details, and taken ahead. So what you see over here is that the complete system is practically running offline. It's extremely fast. Now the next thing which we get, obviously solving the problem, is that we need to look at a whole system which is able to handle online, offline, and so you have your urban users, you have your rural users, all of them coming together as one. So typically, what would we be doing now is that online way would be that you are capturing the face details, ID, all these kind of things. You'll be pushing it to your your own server. So let's say example of mobile banking would be that you push it on a mobile banking system or insurance system or a loan system, and then from there you'll be calling a third-party cloud or third-party on-prem or your own engine that is actually doing the KYC, and you'll be doing all these different types of checks over there, from face to ID, faces real, document is tampered, things like that, and taking it ahead. So this is what is happening today, right? So it does not solve the problem of offline. So how we are solving the problem of offline is like this. You don't need a server, firstly. You have the smart SDK or Sonic SDK sitting on your mobile app. You will be doing something similar, capturing face ID, things like that. And then you will be going into the next level, which is doing all these different checks that I showed you onto the device. So now these checks get done onto the device, and you get essentially a packet of data and all the results that you can process it within your application, or you can push it to the server, your own server, where you can further investigate and store it for audit purpose, and obviously creating your own account over there. So this is the offline way. That means if I'm an agent, I go all the way to a remote place. I can do selfie, face ID, all those kind of things, assisted way. I can get all the data. My mobile app can save it. I come back to my office. I just sync it up, and all the data is available onto the server. If I'm doing self, I can do the same way. So that means if I have high velocity, high volume, which is what Sana mentioned, that if there's a high velocity, high volume kind of approach, instead of you loading the server at the back end with all the mistakes and all the wrong things that can happen, you can actually do it over here. So the experience is much faster, velocity is much faster, and accuracy is much faster. Blur image, not blur image, anti-spoofing, all these kind of things are done on that. Now, to create a situation where you're using urban as well as rural together, you can literally do it in a way where you have 2x the value. That means you have a authentication server, which is basically having the AI component and all these things that we talked about, installed and accessible on-prem or over the cloud. Then the second is that you have the Sonic EKYC over here. So now you can see the value is twofold. On the mobile, I can do all these things. I can send it to the server. From there, I can do a recheck or re-verify, these details. So it's a two-level checking. That means maker and checker or authorizer kind of checking between systems. And then you can do other checks like AML check, PIP check, anti-money laundering check, ID check, from another system to actually conclude that. But from here to here, you will see that you have reduced a lot of your cost, because most of the checks are done over here. No application is getting through without a proper score, as you could say, which is coming from here. And then based on that, you are calling the other, more third-party paid service or something like that to take it ahead. So it actually over time reduces your cost and makes your system much more efficient. So what it takes to roll out Sonic EKYC, all it takes is 10 days. So you give me blood, I give you freedom. That was from old movie of Mel Gibson. But what we say is, if you give us 10 days, we can give you all this Sonic EKYC. So essentially, SDK is ready. You can have it on day 0. We support Huawei as well as Google and iOS. Integration, again, 5 days is more than enough. You only need to call 2 or 3 APIs to get the job done. And then essentially, it's a lot of testing, because we need to make sure that you are comfortable with how it is being rolled out or implemented for you. What is the saving? There is no server if you use Sonic SDK. There is no online dependency, so you can literally work offline. There is no infrastructure. That means if you say that I have 10,000 users coming because I'm doing Christmas, onboarding, like as a bonanza, then you need to handle peak load on the server side. In this case, everybody's phone is the one which is doing that. So there is no load on the server, which is again very, very powerful and beautiful. High velocity, high volume. And at the end of the day, it reduces the cost of compliance, because your data is traveling in a much streamlined way, packeted from this thing and then sent out. So there is no tampering and anything like that that can happen. And again, I will not get into this part, but essentially this is how you should look at it. Like, unlimited devices, unlimited APIs, obviously option of using it monthly or perpetual as you would like it. And then I think my last slide is, I think, going back to questions. Sana, if there are any questions that we have from the audience, or that I have not covered, which you think I should have spoken about?
Thank you so much, Vikram. That was very insightful and very interesting. I hope our audience has found it interesting as well. So I have a question here, and they're asking what kind of hardware requirements, you know, what is the hardware that it takes to get something like this going?
Oh, okay. See, it's pure software. So the Sonic Offline SDK actually does not need any hardware because it runs on the phone. So let's say if your iPhone, my iPhone, Motorola, whichever I'm using, so the solution runs on the phone. So there's no need for hardware. Only if we go for the option where we are doing online and offline coming together. Typically, for a bank, a tier 2 bank, they would possibly have a 64 GB server. It's Dockerized, so that means it's very lightweight and can run as a virtual instances, and they can do the job. So for a production deployment, typically a 64 GB server or an instance would be good enough for us to deploy the system that can do all the things that I have shown. That's for the server side, if you go for that option. But if you only talk about Sonic Offline EKYC, it has no infrastructure requirement. It runs on the phone like a mobile SDK. That's all. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Vikram. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. It was a great session.
Okay, we still have some time. I think Andy has asked, can you share us the slides
Yes.
afterwards? Yeah, sure, Andy. I think we will do that. So we will share the slides as well as the recording. And I think, talk to you later how how we can how we can showcase more, because obviously time is limited, so we can't share everything. But if any other questions are there, yeah, awesome. Sana, any other questions, or shall we close? I think the last part is that I'll take on this. So if you want to do problem finding together, like what we have done for remittance and other businesses, what you saw earlier, case studies. So you can get in touch with Hiran or us, any one of us. So if you say, hey, I want to do a free trial, so again, connect@bluebricks is where you can send us a quick email, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I think we can facilitate that. And lastly, obviously Sana is there with you, Upasana, who can handle, talk about partnerships, if that's the direction we are going with, for the software companies or fintechs who would like to partner with us and, embed the solution inside it. Yeah. And Rami, good to see you. Thanks. I think let's close this. But all of you have a great day and look forward.
Thank you so much, Vikram. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.